What's up, man? Got my man Josh Meunier hanging out with us in the Break Free Academy podcast studio today.
Yep.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Excited to have you here. Known you now for, I guess, about a year. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. We've kind of been bouncing around on that social media thing and interacting a bit. We met face to face last, I think it was last April at the $1 Million Mastermind that we held here.
That's
and,
right.
I think it was Dallas, Texas. Actual Dallas, because there's lots of little cities and towns and shit around here. But yeah, we got to meet face to face, had a talk, and find out that you're good buddies with another good friend of mine, Mr. Alex Cannaboni, who's been here as a guest on this podcast as well. He's a successful individual. He's got a really badass business and does some pretty cool shit in life.
Yeah, he does.
And an unassuming gentleman as well. But man, I'm just super grateful to have you here.
Thank
I
you.
get to see you in the morning busting your ass in the gym. Quick funny story. This goes back about 2 weeks ago. I pull up to the gym in my typical morning routine, and I see you walking very briskly to the outside corner of the gym, where before I exited my vehicle, I see you just hunch over and puke your guts up.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so
Standard.
let's dive in a bit and talk about that, because I mean, it's listen, dude. No offense. It's not fucking normal for people to work themselves out hard. Like no one's pushing you. You're not a professional athlete where your coach is like, hey, you do this or else. Yeah. And yet you continue to push yourself that hard until you get to the point of, I just can't hold it in anymore.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
So that comes from honestly being an athlete all my life.
Yeah.
Really. And it's being an athlete is one of those areas, and just working out in general is an area that I've figured out is that place that I can connect my body with my mind and kind of create this kind of tranquil space for me of like release of stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Been an entrepreneur now for a long time, and it's very stressful for myself.
Yeah.
Just coming through college and then going through, the course of my career, I always found that I was better performing when I was able to push myself to like a max limit.
Okay.
And to Mark's Zalmanoff, right? I'm coming to the gym every once in a while, and he's like, man, you got to stop doing that. Like, that's not good for you, right? And I'm like, I just don't, I don't know how to go for, I have one speed normally when I'm in the gym.
Right.
And that's been the way that I've always been throughout my entire career. And I think it has its added benefits, but it also has its drawbacks, right?
Sure.
You go one speed and it's only attainable for so long, because you sustain injuries or you sustain, mental blocks in that. That I figured out for me, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten, especially from a workout program, when I really first started training hard with some guys in San Diego that were SEALs, and we're doing some other like MMA stuff and things like that, is stop trying to push yourself 100%, all the way through. So I figured out where my 60% ratio was, and then I figured out that once I got past a certain limit, that it was like automatic. My body would just start pushing harder.
Yep.
And that's what got me to the point of you seeing me turn the corner. I knew it as soon as I looked over. I'm like, shit, this is like the worst time for for Tomas to be parked right here with his lights on me, like me ducked behind some trash can, like throwing up.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you fucking owned it, man. Yeah. Simple as that.
Yeah. But you get back on the horse, right? And
you got right back on the horse because you immediately got up and walked back inside and continued to get your ass whooped.
Yep.
So it just takes a different breed of a person to willingly go through that, because you could have obviously said, "Oh, fuck this, I'm out," or just not push yourself that hard that day.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what's the backstory? Because business for you has been something that's been ingrained in you. You've been a small business owner in the past. You've got a couple ups and downs in there, as most of us do.
Sure.
You talked about San Diego, and what was the transition period, and what was the first business that you actually had that went, popped, and it kind of popped off and gained some success?
Yeah. That actually started here in Dallas. That was my first really go at entrepreneurship and starting something from complete scratch. I moved to Dallas to start a gym. I was going to be one of the original like F45 franchise owners down here. Our objective and business goal after about 7 months of negotiation with them, and this is pre-Mark Wahlberg and all this other stuff, was, okay, let's figure out how we're going to open 5 gyms because we need to eat. There aren't a lot of high margins in that, and you know, they're pretty expensive to open, right? Negotiations went south with them. We just decided that we needed to make a pivot and a shift, and I had moved down here with actually 3 buddies at the time. One of them was a ranger, and then the other 2 ended up being my business partners. And one of my business partners said, hey, I've got 2 skill sets. I can do athletics and gym, or I can do pools. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'm buying a truck. I'm putting a pole in the back of this, and started a pool service company that grew into a construction company, and that just popped off. I mean, really doing the research on the economics from San Diego to, we were looking at 3 different areas. We were looking at Denver, Scottsdale, and here. Right. I knew that the growth was there. So I knew, and the cost of living was better for us, and obviously the tax incentives from the standpoint of Texas, it's very hard to beat.
Yeah, it is. It's just a business-friendly state. You know, people don't get that a lot of times. They're like, well, what's in Texas? Like, well, if you know you're an entrepreneur and a small business owner, there's a lot of upside potential to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So you come in, you're maintaining pools at first, and then it evolves into a construction company. I know still to this day you do design work. Right. So is this where you kind of cut your teeth and learned all that design, which is the skill set that you still have to this day?
Yeah. So I just followed opportunities, honestly. We first started pool maintenance. I knew nothing about chemicals. I knew business, right? I knew how to write a pro forma. I knew how to figure out, like, okay, where are the different revenue streams that we can have. I was also performing operations too, so I had to go out there and really learn the business from the ground up and really get in front of clients. But because of our integrity and because of the fact that, you know, people trusted us to do what we said we were going to do, first deal that I did in like a remodel scenario was walking to a backyard. This guy's like, hey, I need you to help me figure out how to remodel my pool. Okay. I'm like, okay. I started making phone calls to people. I sat in front of distributors. I just figured it out, honestly. And, you know, figuring out what like a cost analysis would be on something like that. What are my materials? What's the labor? And then getting out there in the field with the actual contractors or subcontractors we were working with to learn more about how it all went down.
Yeah, the process.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So that, you know, at what point in time is it like, oh shit, I see what's going on here. I understand the back end. I understand how to put the estimates together. I understand how to figure out what we need as far as the supply chain is concerned. I see and understand what's required as far as which subcontractors we need to hire or bring on to make this project a reality. At what point does it get to where you can actually systematize that and offload it to somebody else?
Software, one. But 2, I spent a lot of time just doing a lot of free work for people to knowingly figure out that this could be a long-term success. Because I'm a data guy, right? Like, I'll look at data all day. Like, I knew that there were a certain amount of homes across the United States that were built between 1960 and 1980. All of those were up for remodel in some sort of capacity. And you can kind of dive back into, okay, well, how many of them have pools, right? And then how many of them are in Texas? And then you could break it down by county, right? And so what I figured out is, okay, I need to build a system internally, right? I need to also start offloading some of that project management so I can get more ingrained into the construction side of the business, because that was honestly claiming like somewhere between 60 and 75% of our revenue at certain points. And I also knew that from a design perspective, I could not be competitive unless I started to learn that side of the trade.
Got it. So in the beginning, the design aspect of it was something that was subcontracted out by you. Go find the designer. No.
I was just supplying spreadsheets on like, I knew how to like create something in Excel that I could transfer over to a Word document.
Okay, but you couldn't show them what the finished product would be. So
Exactly.
you had to sell someone with, hey, this is the idea I have. Let me describe it to you, not show you what the 3D rendering of this project is going to look like a month from now.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. It's, a lot of alignment there because that's how I was doing it a lot back in the car audio days.
Okay.
Because I didn't have the skill set. And by the way, this is like 2000, 2001. Mm-hmm. So unless you're a complete fucking nerd, you don't have a computer that can even be capable of doing something like that back in that day. The internet was like barely this thing.
Right.
And I can't draw for shit, even with a ruler. I can't draw a straight line. Okay. That's a joke, by the way. But I could deliver the end result, which was this pretty awesome thing. It was built well. It looked well. It was a nice tangible end result.
Yeah.
But I had to figure out a way to convince the person, hey, your $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 is safe with me. I'm going to deliver the right result for you that you have. But there was no way for me to show them a picture of it done without actually showing them a portfolio of other previous work that I completed.
Right.
Hey, here on this one, I did this, and these are the finishings. Hey, here, this one, I did this, these are the finishings. Which one do you like? Because I can do a combination of both. Mm-hmm. And the more I did, the easier it got because I wound up getting a better reputation, word of mouth spread, that kind of shit. Mm-hmm. But if you got the ability to put the renderings together and show them pretty close to what it's going to be like when it's done, like that's just super powerful.
Yep.
So how long does that skill set take to add on top of all the other shit you're learning right now? Because you got a lot of shit going on.
To get really proficient in that type of software, I mean, solid 1.5 to 2 years of me doing it every day. Mm-hmm. I mean, it started really with me and a notepad at a bar at like, I used to go on Fridays down in like Lower Greenville here in Dallas to a place called Halcyon, right? And basically sat there, started designing stuff on sheets of paper, and then realized that once I started doing more research into the industry that no one in the remodel space was utilizing 3D to separate themselves.
Yep. Well, right? There's your leg up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I started by having to recreate all these backyards and taking surveys, measuring them out, getting all this stuff into the 3D software, which you really build out into 2D first.
Sure.
And then being able to spit it out and then like refining the process with the clients of being able to sit down with them or do it over Zoom and actually show them, hey, we can change different materials here, or do you want to add certain things into this, and people started looking at me being like, no one's doing this.
Yep.
Right. So I knew that I had some sort of competitive advantage there as long as I kept at my work and kept developing that skill set. And then it turned into, okay, how do I present this in a way that is going to really separate us?
Right. And not overwhelm the client at the same point.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of software even puts something like that together?
It's called VIP 3D.
Okay.
So it's a company called Structure Studios.
Yeah.
I think they're out of Arizona, honestly. But they've got different like levels of the software that you can use. I mean, most of it is designed to actually be for outdoor living.
Sure.
But I learned how to build houses out of it. And that was, when I started doing that, the first one was this place in Rockwall that was like right on the lake. Yeah. And this guy's like, hey, I want to put like a 2,200 square foot like addition onto my house. I'm like, I have no idea how to do that in my head, right?
Yeah.
But I knew people through the network, right, of being able to go to my distributors and say, or even builders that I had built relationships with, hey, who are the home builders that are out there that I can contact and leverage, my relationships to even explore these opportunities, because they were all learning processes at that time. And I just wasn't afraid to say yes and go figure it out. Right. So
it's pretty wild, man. Same deal with me. People used to come in and say, hey, can you do this? And yeah, sure. The problem with that was it wasn't scalable. It was like, hey, all this custom one-off shit. I know that I have the skill set, the resourcefulness to figure it out, whatever it is. I tell you, yes, I can do it, but I couldn't. Not that I couldn't. It was very difficult to systematize what I was doing, because every time someone came in, it was a new vehicle, it was a different project, so different gear going into. So you start adding all these different pieces of the puzzle, and all of a sudden now it's not cookie cutter. It's not a paint by numbers kind of deal. And don't get me wrong, there's parts of each of that you can systematize.
Yep.
And I know that now, but that's one of the main reasons that business number one for me crashed and burned like a motherfucker. So how long was that business operational, and how long were you involved with it?
Still operational.
Okay.
Yep. So started in 2016.
Okay.
I sold my shares in it in 2021.
Yep.
That was quite a process, honestly, just going through evaluation and learning what that would look like to get out. But I wasn't really passionate about it anymore. I mean, we had grown it to almost 20 employees. We had 20 trucks on the road. We had subcontractors. It was just getting to the point where I think I had reached a level of burnout because we were scaling. We scaled into the multi-millions very quickly. Yeah. And that for me was trying to handle all the sales, do all the marketing, plus what you had mentioned is systematize something. So what we did is we created a price book and we use a software called Service Titan, which really gave us insight into all of our numbers. Yeah. Right. But that price book was just thousands of items, scope of work, but allowed me to know that I could step away from that business and it would continue to run without me.
Yeah. Without that, it would have been impossible.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. We use a software very similar to Service Titan, and I know Service Titan because it's one that I actually looked at for quite a while. And it was just more than what we needed, if that makes sense. And the problem, I don't know if you found this in your industry, with your service-based company, but the problem I was running into was there was no software that was made for what I did. If you were an HVAC guy, they got all this shit. You were an electrician, they got all this shit. Yep. But you're a car audio installer, or I'm sorry, you're a GPS tracking installer. Who the fuck even knows what that is? So I was having to go into all these different softwares and Frankenstein this shit together to make it work. And I was taking softwares that weren't meant to do something and making it do something else, but I had to, jump through hoops, or just, it wasn't always perfect. Yeah. And the only other solution out there was to, okay, cool, drop some coin and go get something custom built. And if I had continued in that line of work, that's probably what I would have done. But similar to you, my passion for the industry and what I was doing was lost. And, going through shit is cool. It's an experience you get to learn. And which I'm sure you learned. Yep. I know I did, especially with exiting a company. Yeah. But this is what also helps us in our current roles. Right. So right now, you're working with Mike Claudio, Win Rate Consulting. Yep. And you're one of the coaches there. Plus, you're on the operations side, and you're helping Mike dial in a lot on sales process, marketing, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the calls that you and I have. And let's just be fully transparent. You're a coaching client of mine, and I'm on the phone with you once every 2 weeks roughly, and we go over and dive into some stuff. But it's those experiences that we had in the previous roles, and even your current role, because you still are always learning, we're able to take that experience and help the client we're working with at the time. Right? So you having an experience of exiting your company, it's only a matter of time until one of your clients comes to you and says, hey, XYZ, this is the situation, what do I do? Or I've already decided to exit. It came from me about, almost a year ago. I also coached John Hiley, Marketing Savage. John's a great dude, and he hit me up, and he's like, hey, X, Y, and Z, I'm tired and bored and done with this one, and I need to fucking move on. And, oh, cool. So, I'm literally one step ahead of you here, because I just did that 6 months or a year ago. Right. And I laid out to him the entire game plan of what he needed to do. And it's so wild to watch someone follow in my footsteps and literally exit his company, get the whole thing done with his business partner, go separate ways, right? And he had a good thing going, right? That guy had mailbox money coming in, right? But same thing with me. He needed to get rid of the good in order to make room for the great. Yeah. So gets out of the company, and he was focused exclusively on the PDR industry, paintless dent removal.
Huh.
Right?
Okay.
That's what his marketing was for. He's building websites for these paintless dent removal guys. He was running ads. He had a company called Hail Ads, and basically said, okay, cool. Right before he actually made his transition and moved to Dallas, he said, well, I'm the marketing savage. I can market fucking anything. And now you have what he's doing now.
Yeah.
He's got his mastermind going, and he's doing marketing for people at all different verticals and industries.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, so to watch someone kind of go through the steps, and me being able to be the one to say, hey, I didn't do it perfect, but here's the outline. I'm not telling you what to do. Here's the outline of the progression of what I went through. So expect this when you get here. Watch out for this when you're going through this. Mm-hmm. That right there is where the gold is, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, and I had a similar situation because, I mean, you know, Clifton, who's a part of our team, before he even went through his valuation on his company and his exit, and I mean, obviously he's, you know, living on a boat in St. Thomas now, living that dream, right? Mm-hmm. It gave me the ability, and I wasn't even coaching at the time, right? But just knowing him through the Apex network, and obviously being able to talk with him about what my experience had been like, like, hey, buddy, just so you know, the valuation that's going to come back on your company, okay, you're going to get a discounted rate that may come back and discount your shares up to 35%. So you want to make sure that you are negotiating that up front. And he was like, I didn't think about that. And I remember having kind of a debrief with him afterwards, and him being like, yeah, that did come in.
Yep.
And I did have to take a much smaller discount because I prefaced that up front and knew that, you know, I needed to be creative on the deal, but watch out for certain things that were coming down the line. And what I learned from that specifically was book value versus intangible assets, and how much your brand is really worth versus, you know, what's in your bank account and what kind of trucks you have and what kind of assets you are just sitting on your balance sheet. Yeah. And it ended up coming out, and it was like almost like a 60-40 split of your intangible assets being like massive, you know, massive amount of the value of the company to, you know, 40% of just being that book value, which we always thought, okay, well, we've got several hundred clients in the service side of things, like those are going to be the most valuable pieces of our company. No, it wasn't. It ended up being, you know, the software. It ended up being all the things that we built out on the back end that I spent the majority of my time doing that I knew was going to create value.
Oh, you mean the processes?
Oh, yeah.
Get out of here. So, side note here, for you fuckers who are listening right now and are either too lazy or refuse to put the time and effort and energy into building out your systems and processes, you're literally costing yourself money.
Yep.
Your business is an asset if you do it correctly. And if you have a true business, it's something that you can actually sell. It becomes sellable, right? So if you don't have systems and processes, you may be able to sell your business, but you're going to sell it for much less money than if you have documented systems and processes in place. Okay, not a job, a business. And when I say business, and you'll understand this, and you'll back me up on this, I know you will.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
If you need a business, okay? Here's the litmus test. Can you close your laptop today, shut off your cell phone, and come back to a functioning business three weeks from now? Or is that motherfucker burned to the ground? That's a test right there.
Yep, that is definitely a test.
Yep. And if you tell me no, that things are going to implode, then you have some serious work to do. And shameless plug, if you want to do some work on that, just go to jointheapex.com and we can help you.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that, you know, when it comes down to how well you train your employees, how well you, and what I've learned is your time investment needs to be into things that are going to make them more productive, because when they're more productive, they have autonomy. They don't need to call you 15 times a day to figure out, like, what's the answer to X, Y, and Z question, which, by the way, if you don't build out those processes, you're going to get that question 100 times until you're going to answer
the same question 100 times until you want to punch the guy in the face.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what I figured out is every single time I had somebody call me with a question, I made a video. answering that question. Then I dumped it into a training database. And I go, don't fucking call me until you literally watch that video. And I also knew that the software that I had in that had tests on there that would make them take that. And there was like 30, every 30 days. And I didn't make it like hard for them to do.
Sure.
Right. But it was every 30 days, you're going to get a test. Also, what we did is we had Monday and Friday meetings where one of the biggest fears of every single person that I ever trained or had employed was like literally public speaking.
Yep.
So I made them get up and give presentations. It was like, okay, you're afraid of that?
Yeah.
But I need you to teach me what we're teaching you, because that means I know that you know it and you can explain it to a client when you get into any type of issue. Yeah. And it helped build brand equity with each and every one of our clients, which in turn, we just started getting 5-star reviews all the time. And it built the value of our company because at a certain point, there was a turn where once you get to a certain level of reviews and online and all this stuff, was clients would call and go, I've done my research. I already look at your reviews. How do I sign up? Right. I'm like, cool, that saves me 45 minutes of driving to your house, talking to you, doing all the things that I would normally do to start the company, right? Yep. And, it's something that we focus on now. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it makes sense. Getting that brand recognition out there and having other people, it's basically edification of other people. Ryan taught me that a long time ago. He's like, this is cool that you post about your own book a lot. It's awesome. He goes, but it's only going to hold so much weight. So how do we get other people to talk about your book for you? And I kind of was just like, well, I think the content in this is pretty good. And I think if people actually read it, they'll start doing it on their own. And, June of 2019 is when my book launched. And here we are coming up to June of 2022. And there's not a week or a day that goes by where someone's not tagging me in a post about my book. Yep. So the game plan worked, and people started reading it enough and saying, oh, I got something good out of this. And then they'll pass it on and say, hey, you know what, Josh, you need to read this book. It's got some good information there. You read it on your next flight to North Carolina or something. And, on the way home, you're like, fuck, man, I got to write a post about that because I learned some cool shit in there. Yeah. And when you have other people who begin to edify what it is that you're doing, whether it's writing a book, the business that you're in, the last performance you gave as a public speaker, the last podcast episode you did, hint, hint, blog post, like any of that shit, when other people say, hey, you should listen to this, it holds more weight than if I were to come to you myself and say, hey, you should listen to me because I know what I'm talking about this subject.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's
sharing your client wins is huge.
Oh, tremendous.
It makes a massive impact.
Yeah, and you know what? That's something that I need to do. I need to get better at. I get so, and this is, full transparency, I get so busy tied up in the day-to-day here in Break Free Academy because I'm still building on a lot of the back-end processes and systems and making sure that the whole machine overall is moving in the right direction, that I often lack or forget to go in there and talk about my clients who are doing some cool shit, right? And it's like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to fix it now. Simple. Seriously. I'm going to go into my calendar when we're done here, and I'm just going to block off time. I'll block off 30 minutes a week, and I'll be able to, in a 30-minute time, I'll be able to go in there and write up a couple of text messages or Facebook posts that I can share out and basically help those people because I've got some clients doing some cool shit right now, like really cool shit. And I think it's important that the world knows what they're doing. And once again, if it comes from me versus them, it's going to edify what they're doing.
Yeah. Creates value for them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It's that give and take, which I think is so important. I think a lot of times you forget about that. Yeah. In business or in your personal life or whatever is, having those core values of, one of mine is like, love those who love you back. Right. Yeah. And that's a big thing. Sure. Because you can spend a lot of time with people who are just like, they want to take information right all the time. Take it, and then not kind of, regurgitate it back out. Like, so you think about in the construction industry or most industries is, referral-based clients, and how are you getting those referrals? It's like, well, just do me a favor. if I provided value and I executed on the things that I was supposed to, this is going to help me get the word out and
do better.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me about the role over at Win Rate with Mike. How did it start? Where is it now? What's the progression been like? And what's the overall plan of attack and goal for you guys to make some cool shit continue to happen over there?
Sure. I think actually really I met Mike for the first time at $1 Million Mastermind. Same time. He was there doing, I think, a Champions shoes.
Yeah, he had a booth for a Champions shoes as a nonprofit.
Yeah. So that was my first intro into like even Mike Claudio exists, right? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Chris Whitehead, this is funny. I'm doing a remodel for Kurt Lennington at the time, right? And Chris, I was part of Chris's group, and he was like, hey, I think you need to talk to Mike Claudio. And I said, okay. I mean, I knew that he was an executive coach, and I knew that he had something going on with win rate.
Sure.
I just wasn't specifically sure about what it was, and I'll never forget it because I'm sitting by Lennington's pool equipment.
Yep.
And Claudio calls me, and he's like, "So I hear you might be interested in being a coach." And I said, "Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I think that that's kind of a progression that I'm looking to do now with the experiences that I've had in business."
Sure.
And I remember his first question to me is, well, why the hell don't you just go do it yourself? Right. And I had to think about that, right? Because at the time I was building Free Space, and I still have that kind of on the side as my design studio.
Right.
But with him was, well, one, I don't know too much about you yet.
Yeah.
And two, you're asking me some pretty damn tough questions, which I can now appreciate because he wanted to make sure that he was bringing in people that are vetted for win rate and fit well with our client base, right? Because we focus on contractors.
Yeah.
I don't want to say we only focus on contractors because there are some other people within our group.
Yeah, but that's the main vertical or niche that you guys are going after for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we play really well there because each and every one of our coaches, including Mike, have all been in the contracting space in some capacity or the other.
Right.
Right. And the majority of us have been business owners, have gone through the sale or still own our own companies, right? Which I think is important when you are a coach or you are doing things.
You're still in the game.
Yeah, you still got to be in the game.
Yeah.
Right. And keeps you top of mind, keeps you understanding what's going on in the industry. I mean, especially with what's going on now, right? So that started to develop. We had a series of phone calls over like the next couple months, and I had heard that Clifton had hopped on board with him, right? So I had another conversation with Mike. I called Clifton. I said, "Hey, how do you feel about this? Like, what's the vibe? Like, what's going on?" Because at the time, what I really was feeling, and a lot of entrepreneurs can associate with this, is I was back into that lonely phase again.
Yep.
Right. I was working for a couple like pretty big builders doing like cost analysis and design work for them.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I was just like, this isn't necessarily fulfilling me.
Yeah, you're doing it. You're making some money doing it, but yeah.
So
Clifton was your insider or your secret sauce to kind of say, hey, is it as good as it seems from the outside?
Well, I wanted to know what the team was going to be like, right?
Yeah.
That was the biggest part for me, right? Is I wanted to be part of a team again. I've been an athlete for my entire life, literally like 30 years.
Sure.
Right. And I remember even being the first company that I started, I really felt like I was like on an island because I was pushing so hard and I was kind of splitting from my other two business partners.
Yep.
Like there was just too much growth there, and they didn't really want to grow as fast. We, a lot of us experienced that.
Yeah, I know it firsthand.
So it's like, okay, and now I needed to talk to Clifton to make sure that, okay, the team here, are these the people who are like trying to grow and are consistently pushing, or is this going to be another like flat line, like where we're going to plateau and I got to worry about, coming in here, providing a bunch of value and then kind of falling short on what I expect, from a long-term perspective of where we're going to go with this company. Mm-hmm. And I think it was one of the fly-in Fridays it was either October. It was both October and November.
Sure.
That Mike was here, and I saw him at Mark Z Fitness, right?
Yep.
And I started talking to him, and then all of a sudden I was like, hey, I'll come and pick you up. Like, so him and Tiff, who's his wife, right? Grab them. We drive up. Mm-hmm. We start, we work out. I kind of noticed his work ethic too. He's got a crazy work ethic.
Mm-hmm. The gym tells you a lot about people.
It does. It really does. I mean, you can't hide it.
Nope.
You cannot hide it. Mm-hmm. So you're either in there to work or you're in there to kind of, okay, I'm cool. And that's okay. It depends on who you are.
Sure.
But you can see the difference between that there's a pretty big gap sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I noticed that about him, and I gain respect by watching people who want to push themselves, right? I think you probably do too.
Sure.
Right? And it's all right, I'm understanding more about who you are. I've also had to understand that if I'm going to go into business or work for someone, or even with the opportunity that I now have sitting in front of me, mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure that the guy that I was going to work with or for is going to have similar to not more or higher standards than I have.
Sure.
And that was really, really important for me,
mm-hmm.
Because that's where I failed in the first two times that I was looking at partnerships.
Yeah.
And gained a level of respect over a series of calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we started to really get to know each other. I started really talking to him about, all right, well, what do you want to do with this company? Where do you want to go? Okay, well, we want to grow 200%. I'm like, okay, I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's, talking long-term game and long-term strategy of what does this look like in 5 years?
Yeah.
I've even seen Mike, to his credit, starting to get outside of his comfort zone and starting to push even harder towards higher goals than what he originally set mm-hmm. when I first talked to him. Because mm-hmm. I was, in fairness, a little concerned about, okay, you want a certain revenue cap on this, and you feel like that's going to be good enough for the company and that's going to be sustainable. And I think that there are other, obviously, spin-offs from being in business and in the coaching style of business, because you see the speaking engagements and you see the events and you see all the other things that happen as a portion of it.
Yeah, that becomes, in my opinion, that becomes another full-time role within the company, mm-hmm. which Mike is evolving into, which you probably agree with me.
Yep,
and typically what happens is he's going to have to spend the majority of his time in front of people, which mm-hmm. is probably twice as much travel as he currently has, and his travel schedule is already fucking nuts.
It's nuts.
Yeah. And he's going to be getting on more stages, more face-to-face podcasts, more in-person, high-level consulting gigs. That kind of shit's going to happen in the near future for him.
Oh, yeah.
Because going to, and kind of backing up on what you're saying here, him and I sat down this past week at Fly-In Friday again, and he mm-hmm. mapped out the next 3 years. And I kind of worked through it with him together, mm-hmm. and what he's got on that Remarkable that he's using.
You gotta love those things.
Yeah, it's pretty badass, and I kind of left our conversation intentionally with, I don't think you can do this right now. I hope he doesn't listen to this episode, because you and I both know that he has the ability to do so. Whatever the fuck that man wants to do, he's got the work ethic to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
But I kind of came at him with, I don't think you can do it. Not me being a dick, but more to piss him off, to light the fire and really get things going.
Mm-hmm. I saw the plan. Mm-hmm. We actually had dinner on Friday night, and I saw the plan, and I'm looking in the back of my mind, and my response to that in terms of really doubling the initial goal of what we had, right? And for you guys that are out there, it's, we want to grow to 8 figures, right? And that's a big deal. That's hard to do. It's not hard. Well, I shouldn't say it's it is difficult. However, when you backtrack it and you look at it and you go, there's a lot of shit that we got to build out in order to make sure that this happens properly, because I've also, in my experience, been on the opposite end where you just grow too fast, and then you're trying to play catch up, which makes it even 10 times worse.
Sure.
Right? So that's been a significant portion of my role, and working with you too, is figuring out, all right, what's the step-by-step process that has to happen here for us to gain more clients, right? But continue to provide value, through our core values, right? And one of my favorite out of them all is like operate with a help first mentality.
Yeah.
Because what he has me doing is talking with a lot of people right now, and this is what I see across the board with entrepreneurs, is they struggle with time management and accountability.
Yep.
Right? Because nobody out there is holding them accountable to what they said that they want to do.
They don't have a boss.
Right? They don't. Right?
Yep. Guess what, folks? The calendar is your boss. When you don't have a boss looking over your shoulder and saying, hey, I need this done by tomorrow at 3 p.m., the calendar becomes your boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find the same thing. I had a client hit me up last week. One of my Apex executive clients hits me up and says, hey, we had a long talk. We had 45, 50-minute talk. Helped this person through some stuff. And at the end of the talk, the person asked me, from the outside perspective, what do you think I can do better? I said, you want an honest answer? Because you know me.
You're going to give an honest answer.
I only know one way, and that's just full-blown transparency.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not such a good thing. But I was like, all right, you ready? It's like, I've been working with you now nearly a year, and you have yet to adopt a calendar and live by that structure. And I prefaced it with this. I was like, you don't need my help in running a business. You already got that. You already have a successful company. You need this one last single 1% that's going to dial you in, and then things are going to just blow the fuck up beyond belief. And well, what are they? Live it out by the calendar and start getting fucking active on social media as a human, right? Because everyone wants to go out there and start posting upon my business account handles all that. I send all that kind of no. Slow the fuck down, okay? Because at the end of the day, people still buy from people. Yeah. People relate to you, but you have to give them something to relate about. You're not just this machine of a person. Talk about some stuff. Get a little vulnerable occasionally. I'm not saying to go and open up all your dirty language and let all the skeletons out of the closet. Sure. But go in there and show people that you're a real human being, that you have some form of emotion. And you'd be amazed what comes in. I mean, man, I've got, and you've probably experienced it now at this point in time too, but people hit me up probably on a daily basis. Hey man, you posted about something a month ago, a week ago, yesterday, and it really resonated with me, and it made me go and take action. Yep. Because we decided to go and be a little vulnerable or be a little open. And oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, I've heard from people that hit me up in a DM. Hey man, I've been following you for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Yeah. I've seen you grow and do some cool shit. I'm also interested in this XYZ thing you're talking about. Can I know more about that? Well, guess what, people? It's a fucking lead. Go close that person. And if you don't know how to close a sale on somebody, joineapex.com. You need to brush up on the sales skills too. Yeah. There's no reason that there's a human being on this planet that should not have some form of sales training or sales skills, in my opinion. 2
things you need to have to be successful in business: sales and leadership.
Yeah.
Sales never stops.
Nope, never.
Nope. Because I say this to actually, even to my clients, is what you don't realize is when you first start a business and you're doing all the sales, right? That's outward focused.
Yeah.
You're trying to bring all these people in, but once you transition into a leadership role within your company, then you're selling the mission and the dream inside. And if you're failing on that, your company likely is failing.
Yeah.
Because you have high turnover rates with your client or with your employees. You have if Glassdoor was a thing for small businesses, right? Yep. You would get crushed.
Yep.
By every single one of your employees. I mean, one of the best things that I ever did was I started sharing the things that I was getting coached on, right? And I was like, that was the best thing for me was joining groups and joining groups like Apex, joining groups like Arte, you know, and making sure that I was pouring back into my people to let them know that this isn't a job for you. Like, this is what's creating your lifestyle outside of it. But yeah, you may come in and you get, you know, an hour with me or 45 minutes with me, and I'm going to tell you how to become a better person.
Sure.
And I mean, we had attrition rates in the first portion of us hiring people, and then all of a sudden it was like we were getting referrals from our guys that were bringing in high quality individuals because they're like, yo, these guys give a shit about us. Yeah. Right? Like, it's not just paying us a paycheck. It's like they care about us. Like, and yeah, they make us uncomfortable sometimes. That's part of my job.
It is. It is. You know, we've seen the same thing over here. One of our sales guys has brought in either 4 or 5 people onto this team himself, right? It's all, they're younger guys, and they see, oh, wow, you know, this one over here's got good success, and they want to know more. And he's been very picky choosy with whom he actually will even bring to the table and say, hey, you know, give this one a shot. We don't divert or put them through a different onboarding and hiring process. They go through the same process. But if they prove, and more times than not, they prove to be a worthy candidate or individual, and they've come in, and some of these guys are doing some cool things with us at this point. So you have to, and this is leadership, right? We went over that, but you have to go back and pour into your people, right? You've got to put some time on the calendar. Hey, I'm going to pour back into my team this week. It's 30 minutes, 15, it doesn't make a difference, right? And it could be you, even when you don't have time during business hours, record a damn video, record a Loom video, record just a screenshot of you going over something, and then share it out to your team and say, hey guys, this is a new thing that we got going on. I want to make sure everyone on the team understands this, because this will help you in other areas outside of the company, and lay it out. I mean, you could do read books with your team and say, hey, this is that's one of the things we do, by the way. You come on this team here. Oh, by the way, these 4 books, the mandatory reading, you got to have them done within the first month. Get to it. For the first 2 weeks they come in here during their onboarding, I don't care what position we hire you for, you got 2 weeks in front of a computer. We're running you through the big majority of the online courses we have in the back end. Because we have a couple of mindset courses that Ryan did back in the day, which are still brilliant. But more importantly, we have a dedicated online course for our team members when they come in. Hey, this is how we operate. These are our core values. This is our mission. And it's coming out of Ryan's mouth, not mine, because he's the founder of this company. He's the one who's established these values and mission. So in my opinion, it's very important he's the one kicking it out.
I agree.
And then from there, they start going into the other courses that even someone like you, one of our paying clients, has access to. Right? So I put my team through Build Your Machine, because guess what? The marketing plan, which is Build Your Machine, that we put out there for our clients is the same game plan we run on the back end.
Right. You guys crush it.
Yeah, we crush it. We don't spend $1 on fucking paid advertising.
Yeah, exactly.
So why wouldn't I onboard or train my team, every new member that comes on, hey, this is how we kill it. Every time I onboard and bring somebody else on, now I have another soldier out there running the same game plan. You think it's going to get good after a while? Yeah.
You know, I think is awesome about that too is like that's your client experience, right? Is when I'm talking with clients, or even what I'm doing now within win rate, is how do we engage with our team members to make sure that we understand front to back and really reverse engineer it of what's the client experience look like, because when we get referrals, which is the ultimate game plan to work with our clients, and when they see success, I'm going to tell a whole bunch of other people, but there are so many things that go into that from the first touch point, right? And something that you had mentioned earlier of, I could have people following me for 2 years. Same thing with Mike. He's been doing YouTube content now, I think for probably about 2 years.
Yeah, about that.
They've been following on that, and then all of a sudden they're ready to transact, and they're ready to become clients because they see that there's been enough value. They see that there's been enough brand equity, and they see they're like, okay, what is this client experience really going to be like? Because if Mike and I just had this conversation today, right? Like sometimes you're gonna have people that have never even heard of you, right? So they're so early on in the process that they don't understand the true value that's going to come in. But through that social media, you know, whether that's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever that you guys put out there, that's where they're starting to realize, like, this guy's a human being. Their whole team, like, are sharing messages and sharing pieces of value that I'm getting out of this that makes me want to join that network. And it's super powerful. You know, and that's what excites me about being part of win rate is being able to, I'm a data guy. Like, I'll look at data all day. Mike looks at me and he's like, just take action. I'm like, sometimes it's better for me to like sharpen the axe, right? You know,
I'm the same way.
But, you know, and on the flip side is, how do we standardize this process? And that's a very key element for us to be successful long term, especially when you're talking about growing from a 7-figure business to an 8-figure business. You have to have that stuff in line. So it's exciting.
It is. You got a lot of shit ahead of you too. You guys got some work to do.
Oh yeah. I know.
What's next for you, man?
Next thing for me, man, is, you know, I want to be in your role. For win rate.
Be the integrator for win rate.
So I'm excited about that. I think that there's a huge possibility, but I even told Mike, I said, I don't want anything handed to me. I want to earn it. And that's going to be the case. So, you know, just moving forward with that, man. It's cool too, because the team dynamic that we have, I have not been a part of a team like that in business before. And, you know, I've worked in the Fortune 500s. I've worked for, you know, small businesses. But now it's like you can really get behind that, and that's a huge testament to what Mike's doing and what he's been able to really focus on and invest in, and we're lucky.
He's a hell of a leader, man. Listen, I know him really well. He's a good dear friend of mine. He's a powerful individual, you know, both physically and mentally. And it's cool to watch, you know, this thing that he built from the ground up just kind of grow and expand into what it's becoming right now. And, you know, even though I'm not really a part of that team, I feel a connection, because of the people involved. I know everyone personally who's involved over there. And it's just cool to watch it from an outside perspective come together and become what it's about to become.
We're only scratching the surface, too.
Yes, sir, man. Hey, I appreciate you coming in here today. If you would like to share out where people can connect with you online or learn more about win rate, please feel free to let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at josh.meunier_. It's incredibly hard to spell my last name, so
we'll drop it in the show notes for sure.
But from a design perspective, I mean, Free Space Studio, so free.space.studio. You can check out some of my design stuff on there. And yeah, man, that's, you know, it's always a pleasure to come in and see you and get a chance to kind of shoot the shit and talk about what business is. And I really respect what you guys got going on over here and the brands you guys are building.
Cool, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Later.
All right. See you.